you go to these county conventions and you see the Gestapo tactics, the scorched earth tactics.
Gestapo tactics?
Yeah, they are.
That's a strong word.
Well, you look at, we're going to be filing several protests because the reality is they're not playing by the rules.
The Fox News political insiders are back. And, John, why are you shaking your head?
Well, I mean, he's working for Donald, and he's going to say that. But it's really inaccurate what's going on in these state conventions every weekend. The sort of the hidden news that we have to get to is each weekend, Cruz is picking up delegates that are loose, that are unbound, or for the second ballot. He's really gaming this
Should
thing.
it go to a contested convention?
Right. So he's very much ahead of it. Well, hold on. But before that is, what's really going on is mayhem inside Donald Trump's campaign until they brought Manafort in. There was factions, fighting.
Is he the right guy?
He is one of the right guys. This guy's
the
very,
right guy.
very sharp guy.
Doug,
but they're still fighting.
I've known Paul for 45 years. He has generated controversy, but far more important than that is he is somebody who takes charge, who knows the delegate game, and is able uniquely to get to Donald Trump and say, this is what we're going to do, Donald, and Donald is going to defer to him. It is the key to the Trump candidacy. Any chance he has to win is based on Paul Manafort.
One of the things that Manafort is saying is that Donald Trump can clinch the nomination before June 7th. And you hear that, but is this the guy who really can get it done?
Well, I mean, yes, and they need somebody who is driving that bus.
What about for Ted Cruz, though? Because he's been picking them up,
Cruz has
those delegates.
overperformed on the delegate operations. He has one state. There are states the Republicans have the voters, like in Colorado, didn't even have a chance to participate in. They're being the delegates.
How do you think he's done it?
Well, because he's out-organized everybody.
You asked in the commercial, is he the smartest guy? On running this campaign, of the 5 candidates, Cruz is by far
You
way
mean the
ahead
Dems on one side and the Republicans?
He's the
who's
one
left?
who's got this thing figured out. Listen, on air, on TV, he's a rather unappealing, unattractive candidate, Cruz. But he is very driven,
especially when
very
he says
self-disciplined.
he's against New York values in New York.
Has that hurt him a lot?
Let me get to something Pat said. Pat correctly said Wisconsin was a disaster for Trump, and it was. And it was a disaster publicly, his performance, the shows. He just didn't do well. Now, he's gone basically dark this week. He's taken it back. I haven't had an event in 4 days. Manafort,
well, he's in Rochester this weekend.
But Manafort is good for the behind-the-scenes delegate stuff. But the question is, can Trump recast himself as the candidate from last fall? Less invective, less negativity.
Let me speak to that. He's got 2 tasks. One is to secure the nomination and the fight for delegates when there's so many what I call Trojan horse delegates, delegates who are, unlike the Democratic Party, you don't get to pick your own delegates. And you were saying to me, John, many states instituted rules that allowed the party leaders, the hacks, to take over those roles as delegates, quote, saying, I'll be the Trump delegate, but I'm really not.
Right.
And then we have the other problem, which I keep addressing. Donald Trump has got to change his public persona, and he has got to become...
Well, he says he can.
Well, he better, because here's the problem. As I kept said week after week, he is being put on a new testing pattern of whether or not he is able to be presidential, and as I said, and also have people have confidence in him. And that means a different campaign. And by the way, he has, I don't know, is he tweeting as much as he did?
All right, I want to move on because I want to get to Twitter. King Friday says, what do you think of Roger Stone, who works for the Trump camp, threatening delegates in Cleveland? Do you think there's anything to that? Your thoughts?
Look,
Manafort's former partner.
Roger Stone, whatever you may think of him, is an effective operative. In the 2000 election, he brought people to Florida and demonstrated outside radio stations to gin up support for George W. Bush. He is a premier organizer. As Pat rightly put it, he is a partner and longtime friend of Paul Manafort. These are serious people who play to win. This is very important for Trump. It is not something that's going to be reported, but trust me, they could make the difference for Donald.
All right. You know Hillary Clinton very well.
I do.
You've worked with her for many years. If it should turn out to be Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, we talked about statistics and the numbers in New York and Pennsylvania, but in a general election, does this kind of ground team now with these men that you've just mentioned for Donald Trump make it tougher for Hillary Clinton?
Well, let's put it this way.
John's saying no. What do you think?
Well, I say yes, and I'll tell you why. Donald Trump's numbers have gotten very, very bad for the reasons Pat suggested. If he's going to be a credible general election candidate, should he get the nomination, he's going to need to be very tough, very harsh, very negative. There's no one tougher, harsher, and more negative and effective than Paul Manafort and Roger Stone.
No,
John?
Because we haven't yet seen the key here. Not the staff, it's the candidate. And the candidate has driven himself to have a 70% disapproval rating among all voters across all demographics, even in the South.
So who do you want it to be for your party?
It's not who I want. I'm analyzing the race, and I'm saying that he's crossed the point where I think he may not be able to return from. If he's the nominee,
who in your party
has
not crossed that point and could emerge, do you think?
The other two, theoretically, could
Ted
win.
Cruz, John
He
Kasich.
could win a general election, and Kasich definitely could win a general election, but he can't get nominated. He can't even win a primary other than his home state.
All right, we'll be right back.